when you're building anything from a software perspective, and look, Salesforce of the world and FinancialForces and others are always building out their product. There's a balancing between the development that you do to the marketing and the product that you sell.
Yep.
There are very few products in the world where, and Facebook and others are probably a few of them, where the perceived customer doesn't pay. The reality is, if you're not paying for it, you're the product, you're not the customer.
Yep.
But there's this balancing act between how much money or time and effort do you invest in the development of a solution to a problem before you can validate that people will actually pay you money to solve that problem.
What is up, everyone? This is Ronnie, your host of the Ronnie Asani Show. My number one goal in this show is to bring you some of the most amazing and accomplished individuals in the business world to share with you some real, raw, and authentic business insights. We sit down and talk in a casual setting, nothing too serious, yet we unpack some of the most incredible ideas, concepts, and best practices. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Oh, and don't forget to share the love. Like, share, and subscribe. Gracias, amigos. Alrighty. What is up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Ronnie Asani Show. Joining me today, Daniel Bartels. Quick introduction about Daniel. Regional Vice President of Sales at FinancialForce.
Yep.
A software as a service industry thought leader, and 20 plus years of experience in sales and marketing.
Yeah.
Quite a long time. One of the interesting things about Daniel is he started, launched, and owned a startup, and which was also listed on the ASX. So we'll go into that a little bit later. And he's a specialist in Salesforce, FinancialForce, and Salesforce Marketing Cloud. Daniel, welcome to the Ronnie Asani Show.
Thanks, Ronnie. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you. This is the third time we're trying to make it, so third time's a charm.
It's been an interesting story to try and get this session to happen, so it's been good.
Yeah. A few things to talk about today, and obviously your experience in sales and marketing. It would be very good to go into especially B2B, sales tactics, strategies, tips, anything you can share from your experience.
Yeah.
But also maybe we can talk about digital transformation
Sure.
with what's happening over the last maybe 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and then jump into a few things about yourself and how you've grown into your career, and we'll see where the conversation takes us.
Yeah, for sure. No problems.
Cool. So you've been at Salesforce for how many years now? 5?
So I've been in the Salesforce ecosystem for about 10 plus years, almost 12 years now. So I work for FinancialForce now. So we're a partner of Salesforce. We are one of the few companies that are allowed to use the Force branding in the ecosystem.
Yep.
We have, so we're an ERP on the back end of Salesforce as a platform. So most people know Salesforce as a CRM. So where do you house your customer information? And we were one of the first, what they call ISVs, so independent software vendors on the Salesforce platform. I've been there for sort of just short of 5 years now, running the sales team across APAC. But before that, I worked for Salesforce in their core CRM team. I was in their marketing cloud team you mentioned earlier. And I was a customer before that. So I've really been through the different stages of what's it like. And for lots of the sort of listeners and viewers out there, I had my own company, and that's how I got into software as a service. I was as a Salesforce customer. I had to find a solution for my company really quickly. Stumbled across Salesforce, made the plunge, and had to bootstrap and build my own company using the platform.
Yep. It's interesting when you come from a place where you are a customer for a product or a company, and then you work with them or you start selling the product because you've seen it from the eyes of the customer.
Yeah.
And then you go in and it gives you a different perspective, I suppose, than just starting out as being on the vendor side.
100%. And look, I'll use that anecdote or that story all the time for customers through my entire sales career within the platform. I will talk about how I made the decisions to invest in Salesforce and what I did, how you should frame up what they're trying to make decisions about their business.
Yep.
And they're really simple decisions to make. I mean, any decision you make around any technology or solution provider, they're all about things that make your organization better tomorrow than what they are today. And you really shouldn't be in my opinion, you shouldn't be choosing any supplier or product that makes you change the way your business is or the way you want your business to be, because that's the way that solution or provider works. That doesn't make sense. You can always find another solution in the marketplace. It should be around that solution helps you do what you want to do
better.
Yeah, and do it better. It should augment you.
Yeah, 100%. Solution shouldn't adapt to your business. You shouldn't adapt to the solution. Pardon me. The solution should adapt and fit in your business model.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It should be. It's no different to any product you buy. We're talking about.
Yeah.
It took us 3 times to get this together. My new car didn't work the way it was meant to.
Yeah.
But when people bought cars, it's because it got you from A to B faster. And it was faster than a horse. It was faster than riding a bike. And it's the same process. You shouldn't just spend the money on it because it looks better. You should spend the money because it does it better. And it provides you utility, or it provides you value more than what you could do elsewhere.
Anyone listening who perhaps is starting a company in the software space, what are the things that they should think about from a customer standpoint, whether it's value proposition or even research or positioning? I mean, Salesforce is a giant of a company, right? Yep. One day, when they started, they were tiny compared to where they are now. So, I'm thinking out loud as I'm asking that question. A lot of the times when you're starting a company, especially in the tech space, you look at competitors and you can be a little bit demotivated by all the things that are out there. So I suppose one of the things that you should be trying to do is also, whether you're small or big as a company, is to carve not only a niche, but a very distinct value proposition and not just branding as well, but also how you communicate what you provide and what the product is in the market. And so I'm not sure if you have any ideas or thoughts on, for anyone who's starting out something, what should be the thought process?
Look, I've got a lot of colleagues, and I've given a lot of advice to different friends of mine who've gone through this process, and I've looked at it for myself and others. It's a bit of a balancing act. When you're building anything from a software perspective, and look, Salesforce of the world and FinancialForce and others are always building out their product. And there's a balancing between the development that you do to the marketing and the product that you sell.
Yep.
There are very few products in the world where, and Facebook and others are probably a few of them, where the perceived customer doesn't pay. The reality is, if you're not paying for it, you're the product, you're not the customer.
Yep.
But there's this balancing act between how much money or time and effort do you invest in the development of a solution to a problem before you can validate that people will actually pay you money to solve that problem. So many solutions will run into a challenge where the DevOps guys have gone and developed this phenomenal solution to a problem. Not even that nobody thinks they have. Nobody has, or they don't want it solved that way.
In the imaginary.
Well, look, it might be these are all components of different problems, but nobody wants to pay any money yet to solve that problem, or to have it solved that way. So you'll see companies go through things like minimum viable product and then go and sell it. And to me, the critical piece for any organization or any sales team, in our experience for FinancialForce, we've really spent the last 4 and a bit years breaking the Australian market for ourselves. And for us, it's about validating the use case of why would you use our product in the first place? How does it make you better tomorrow, or your organization better tomorrow than what it is today? How do our partners and our network see that it makes either them or their customers better tomorrow than what they are today? There's a lot of work that goes into that, right? So, and we don't always try and sell all features of the entirety of the platform. it's too much for a sales team to get their head around, customers to understand. Customers will buy the overall solution, but they're actually buying a solution to their problems, not what you built. Yep. And that becomes for your question around people who are building this early iteration. One of my good friends has built a great product initially out of Singapore and sort of now out of Perth, but his product's evolved 4 or 5 times from what he first thought it was going to be. And I still remember his original pitch of what it was going to be. And I remember saying to him, look, if you get this right, it's $1 billion idea. But it's not there yet. It's a really high dice roll, right? To get it to be that particular deal. And he's evolved it since then because the market value wasn't there, or the way it was going to be executed just didn't work in the market for him. So I think that's a critical piece as well for people sort of jumping into the tech space. It's a constant journey. It's a constant evolution. Whether it's a tech product or a service you're delivering or a physical product you're delivering. There's a reason why fashion retailers change the design every season, because last year's shirts don't want to sell anymore. The fashion's changed. Yeah, exactly. So that's key too.
I want to go back to I want to go to FinancialForce, but I wanted to get your opinion, if you do have one, on Canva. Not sure if you're if you've been up to date with where they are at. Last week, the news came out that the valuation is now around $19 billion.
Yeah.
They've come a long way.
Absolutely.
And I remember Canva because I cross over the creative space as well, and I used to use them back in the day. It was never your Photoshop. It wasn't a high level professional tool to use to come up with all sorts of creative. But the niche or the angle they focus on is, how can we allow you to come up with cool designs in a very effective and fast manner?
For sure.
In less than 30 seconds, you can come up with a cool Facebook post or Instagram post, as opposed to taking 5-10 minutes on Photoshop or Illustrator or any other tool. And so I really like what they've done, but I was kind of wondering what your take is.
Look, I think most people misunderstand what the valuation of tech companies is about. The valuation of almost every tech company is about recurring revenue. And Canva are one of the few organizations in the market who have really easily traversed consumer buyers, SMB, mid-market, and enterprise users. And I'm a Canva customer, and I've got to say, the use case of when I first subscribed to Canva, I'm not doing that anymore, and I haven't turned my subscription off. So I'm a perfect example of that, of why the valuation has skyrocketed, because people are subscribing to the service. And I've used it to build myself a Facebook header. I've used it to build my daughter a birthday card. I've built an online email. I've built an email template. Here's all these diverse uses for my membership. So I've just kept it rolling. But that's the same model they've got for a single consumer that I've got my subscription to an enterprise team at Amazon who don't want to go and use Adobe Photoshop. We're in the sales team. That's too complex for us. It's too hard. How many users do we need? Is it, this is awesome. I want a license as well. So all of a sudden you've got this organic growth within the enterprise play, and there's a couple of salespeople going out there and selling enterprise deals to these enterprise customers. So and again, Canva, it currently is still a private company. It's got a valuation based on an investment round not going public. So it's a prediction of what it's going to be worth when it finally goes public. But they've traversed the commercial enterprise space as well as the consumer space. There's not very many tech companies that actually have done that well. So very interesting as much as the product is, it's not like it's a good product. I don't think it's amazing, but it's got the revenue stream right.
Yep. It's very interesting. And if you were Adobe, right, you have some tools that you can argue I'm not 100% sure here, but you can argue that Canva or the likes of it have stolen a bit of market share from.
I don't think Adobe even care.
They don't care at all.
Don't care at all. I think Adobe look at it as it's not their market. I think the customers, all of the enterprise customers that Adobe would care about, even if they've got Canva licenses, their view would be, and look, you could look at all the creative suites that Adobe have got. And look, I've got a number of colleagues who are over there, and I probably should go and ask them, but I don't believe Canva really steps up onto the competitive set for an enterprise deal at Adobe.
They don't, but here's where I think it gets interesting. And maybe that becomes a little bit of a debate.
Yeah.
I think, so I look at myself and I see a potential customer for both.
Yeah.
Because I use both.
Of course.
And I'm not a professional creative artist, so that's not my forte, but I still use both platforms. I still understand, how to use the basics, and maybe you can call me an intermediate user of Illustrator or Photoshop. Yep. But because I'm a busy person, like everyone listening and yourself, and I'm just always looking at how can I get the maximum quality in the shortest amount of time in terms of what I do. And so rather than going and, starting something from scratch on Illustrator or Photoshop, or, buying a template and then customizing it, Canva just gives me all these ton of options and I can churn out something real fast. So I, in that sense, started using Illustrator a lot less.
Yeah, sure.
And so I feel like...
But you haven't stopped paying for it.
Sorry?
But you haven't stopped paying for it.
I haven't. For Adobe?
And that's what I'm saying. And that's my point, right? So when Adobe talk about the competitive set, they're not seeing a loss of revenue because of Canva's growth.
I see your point.
They're seeing customers use both. I can be a customer of Uber and own a car. And that's, do Uber see BMW as a competitor? Not really. Now, they might look down the path, they might look to the future and say, okay, are we going to see Canva coming out with enterprise grade, Illustrator,
Premiere,
Creative Suite, competitor? I don't think Canva are remotely interested in that. I don't think it's even on their radar.
Maybe they get bought out.
Look, maybe they do, and that's part of the pathway of. But again, is that the core? Is that the core focus of companies like Adobe to even play in that space? I don't know.
Probably not.
And look, at 20,
if they ever see that, they might be like,
look, a $25, $30 billion acquisition that it would be now. Is that where they want to be? I don't know.
I want to get your thoughts on something else I've been thinking about lately. Facebook's product development strategy. Facebook wasn't the first. No, everyone knows this. Facebook wasn't the first company or platform in the world in the social media space. There was MySpace, there was a few others. They found how to make the platform super user friendly, and they obviously over the last 10 years developed a ton of features and grown and became the beast they are today. But if you look at the last 5 years, or maybe a little bit longer than that, they weren't the first to market as well for, different social media ecosystems, like, when Instagram came out, or when Snapchat came out, or when TikTok came out. All of these platforms started and were creative and came up with innovative social media platforms. And if you look at it, you kind of think, okay, well, maybe it looks like they just used their sheer power to just take over rather than stay ahead of the game by innovating. Would you see it that way? Or
look, it's a common problem, I think, of every tech company, or every company in general. When we start, similar to I started my company, and you're starting, yours. You're small, you're innovative, you bootstrap, you build, you compete with your brains. And then you build your structure to a point where that level of innovation is required just to keep the progression of what you've already built running. But in order for you to compete against the newer players in the market, how do you prevent them from taking your lunch, so to speak? You acquire. And this is exactly talking about Adobe, Oracle, Salesforce now, ServiceNow is about to enter into this space. Microsoft, they're not typically growing by building new product. They grow by acquiring great product and integrating or making the value of 1 + 1 = 7. That's where they see their innovation of pulling it all together. And it's no different to what the conglomerates of the past used to do. Just because you were a shipping company, you've horizontally integrated and you're vertically integrated and bought other parts of the value chain. And that's exactly what you see the tech companies doing now. And I think that the real challenge they've all got is the bigger the team and the bigger the existing product set, the greater the expectations of customers to continue the forward momentum of what they purchased, particularly in software as a service. I think it's a really interesting dynamic that is the market and the technology has created. Nobody expects the product to be today what it was when you first bought it 6 months ago. Where's the next update?
Yep.
Hold on. When you bought it 6 months ago, it was fine, wasn't it?
Yeah. What happened in 6 months?
Yeah, and you buy a book, and I'm not expecting more chapters to the book.
Yep.
But in the software space, that's exactly what the expectation is, and it's not bug fix. It's feature growth. It's just utility growth. I'm expecting to get more value over time for what my agreed investment was, 2 or 3 years ago. And that's a really interesting dynamic for any software company to deal with. Your comment about the Facebooks of the world, I think they've, why did they win? They haven't won, but why are they winning today? They defined what their market was. They defined what their revenue stream was. It was about eyeballs. They focused on members first. That was why they beat the MySpaces of the world.
Yep. Interesting. Let's shift gears a little bit into B2B sales, shall we?
Yeah, sure.
So you've grown your team and FinancialForce to lead in the APAC world, and so I'm kind of curious. And I think I was going through your LinkedIn. You guys grew by 400% over the last few years. So, what is your recipe or equation to growth? And that's a very open-ended question. And how do you, what do you focus on when it comes to selling and what you tell your people, your team?
Yep.
And how were you able to grow substantially fast like that in the last few years?
Yeah, look, for us, we're playing it in an ecosystem. So for us, it's a matter of understanding what it is and where we sell and who our customers are. So look, we're an IS, so we're actually on the Salesforce platform itself. So the first measure for us is if you're a Salesforce customer, you're a potential lead for us. So, and this is I've given advice to a lot of our partners who've joined our internal ecosystem around understanding what is it that they're not.
Yep.
So, I'm not, we'll talk to any company, but, we're really clear when potential prospects come to us and they don't have Salesforce as a current product set. Honestly, we'll almost tell them to, look, thanks, but you're not one of my potential clients.
Right.
We've had a couple that have said, what do you mean you don't want to sell to us? And it's about the investment not making sense. So understanding that first piece. The next piece for us in terms of our growth is understanding everybody needs an ERP. Every organization, no matter how small, invoices and gets payments for their clients. Has to report them to the tax department at some point, so you need some sort of finance system. So now it's the question of, okay, you're on Salesforce, great. The next piece is, are we a fit for you because of your size, your complexity, where our product does or doesn't fit? We're not a solution for everybody, but we're a solution for most finance solutions on the platform. And then that next layer of what are the specifics to particular industries that are required? So we've got an ERP product, and we've got a professional service automation product. So the easiest way to think of professional service automation is it's CRM for services companies.
Right.
How do you, predict, forecast, manage your people, and actually deliver the billing for those. Look, we're not only on the Salesforce platform, the leading PSA, but we're also the leading PSA globally in the wider market. So in region, what's driven our growth is about understanding that piece, but then being focused on the customer first, being really willing to tell a customer when we're not right for them. And look, thanks very much, but I don't think this is going to work for you. But also be willing to tell them how the deal or how their successful engagement of the project will work. Because, I'll tell my sales team, there are 3 currencies that everybody buys every transaction with. Cash, the first one. Time and effort are the second 2. Time and effort are way more expensive than cash.
Yep.
And you might value the level of change, but that's sort of an outcome versus a currency in my view.
Yep.
So, I'll talk to customers about, look, before you make a decision on what you're going to buy and what's the cost of ownership. It's not about, the total investment you're going to put in there, but your time and effort to make the change in your organization. Otherwise, don't do it. So let's work out why you're doing this. And then, look, if we're not the right solution, we'll be the first to tell you. And then the other piece behind that is be really willing to lose the customer. Be willing to give them advice that they're not ready to hear sometimes, because longer term, hand on heart, it's going to get them to a better place.
And nothing, in my view, builds more trust than that.
Yeah.
Being 100% honest about my product is not right for you.
Yeah.
If it is.
Yeah. And look, I got some advice from one of our clients a couple of years ago, and it was quite interesting. Really hard sales cycle, and a guy called Tony Gruby, shout out if you watch Tony. And he said, look, when we started to say no, that we can't do that. Like, that's just not part of what our solution is. And I think it's really easy in technology, and especially in platforms where, look, you can do most things on the Salesforce platform, and look, you can do most things on Oracle and Microsoft. You can build it, sure. We built ours. You could build FinancialForce if you wanted to. It's just how much money have you got? When you were willing to say no, we don't have that. That's when trust was built, by being able to say what you couldn't deliver.
Yep.
Rather than continually saying yes. And that was a real opener point for me, where it was being really clear with customers on, look, we can do these things exceptionally. Outside that box, look, I can recommend you some other people. I can show you some other ways to do it. Or is that critical? And I think that's really led us down the path of the sort of the growth that we've had, and really leveraging the wider network of Salesforce as well to make that work for us.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you guys start off, you go after clients who already have Salesforce.
Yes.
And that is a very,
it's a big market.
It's a great advantage to have as well. And, for anyone listening or, watching and thinking, okay, well, I'm starting something from scratch and I don't have a wide network to leverage off. Maybe partnerships, right? A lot of times,
for sure.
That's where, you can grow really fast.
Yeah, and I think we've done part of the secret for our success locally has been we pivoted our delivery from owning all of our delivery internally to a partnership model, and that was pretty critical in our planning around scale. Understanding that in a particular deal, you don't have to take away every dollar of the deal. You look at services companies or product companies. There's an overall outcome that a customer needs, and they're not necessarily always going to get all of that from you. They've got employees already. They're paying dollars to get this outcome, right? So sometimes not being so fixated on everything's got to flow through your books. When you put the customer right in the middle of this and say, I'm focused on getting you to the right outcome. If that means somebody else might get a good chunk of this deal and not just me, that should be okay. If you're completely focused on what their outcome is, then it builds trust. And the customer's now focused on getting it done, not let's sign this deal. And along the way, your deal just gets signed.
Yep. And on the flip side, if they are a savvy buyer, and they can sense that you're not 100% genuinely trying to find them what's right for them, they might withdraw or, pull out any minute. So it's not only you're building trust, but if you're not doing that, you're risking the entire deal.
Absolutely. And we've had some interesting customers in the last couple of months who are one's a long-term customer, and they're doing some amazing growth and sort of pulling together multiple businesses under an umbrella. And we had to give them some really tough advice around how they were going to go about the next evolution of their project. And it required us to explain to them to simplify what they were doing, simplify the thought process, go through some really clear pillars. And when they wanted to jump down the pathway and say, we can't go to pillar 2 till you've answered all the questions in pillar 1. I know you want to get to pillar 3, but guess what? They're dependent upon components of the pillar 1. And so let's all come back and answer pillar 1, and then we'll go to pillar 2.
Yeah.
And look, it caused us a whole heap of challenges as well. It slowed our deal down, which as a salesperson is the last thing you want to have happen. But if you go back to the customers in the center of this, and it's a very, you mentioned before, I've been in sales for 20 plus years, and as a salesperson, the numbers reset at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter, end of the year, but you get a bit of maturity around this deal is done well. This relationship is built well when you do it properly. You do it correctly for the customer.
Very interesting. So in terms of the things that you look for when you hire, because you're hiring at the moment, right? Yeah,
we've just hired some. I've just filled the last couple of spots, but look, we're growing aggressively. I think the first thing that I look for is smart people.
Okay, define, because that's very broad.
It's a broad category.
Okay. So you look for IQ, EQ.
I look for someone who I can see being able to sit in front of a customer and talk intelligently.
Okay.
About their experience, the individual's experiences, and how those experiences can help the customer be better tomorrow than what they are today. Then there's some elements underneath that. I'll look at, what's your sort of specific background? Have you sold tech before? Have you sold before? How would you go about closing deals? And like all things, there's a sort of a graduation of sort of senior to junior in the team. But to me, the critical aspect is, will customers trust you? And can you talk intelligently about their problems? I think business acumen is constantly overlooked in the software sales game in particular. I think there are a lot of salespeople kicking around who've learned to trot out the first call deck. They're great at turning up to the enablement session, but in terms of the actual business problem that their company's solving for a customer, they've got no idea what it does.
So how do you gauge and test that when you interview or whatever the process is? How do you gauge how smart they are if they were to sit in front of a customer and share their experiences and talk to the customers intelligently?
Ask questions.
You just role model?
I'll just role model. I'll ask questions and I'll be direct. Look, I'm a very direct guy. I'll ask questions around what their experience of a particular business function is. When have they held roles, or when have they been involved in projects for customers that solve particular problems, and what were the issues? What did they learn? I'll ask questions about when they failed. I think you learn more from failure than you do from success, and as a result of that, so talk me through 3 of your biggest failures. And out of the failures, what did you learn? Like that to me is the mana. That's the value in it, right?
Would you take someone, let's say, just an example or a scenario, if you had 2 people and everything is pretty much on par, but one person had less B2B or sales experience in general, and the other person had less knowledge about the product, which one would you favor?
I don't think anybody walks in really with amazing product knowledge.
Maybe they came from another department.
To me, I then go back to, do they exhibit the behaviors of a salesperson?
Okay.
And, I've got some good examples that I've hired, and, people who before the meeting jumped on LinkedIn. You can see that they're going through, I actually see them liking and following posts and things and reading documents. And I'm now getting alerts in our email marketing, email automation system that this person's downloaded a whole bunch of ebooks. And when they jump and talk to you, they can talk intelligently about, they've done the work, and you can then see that they're going to do the work with a client. I think in an interview process, you're selling yourself. I know with every good job that I've got, I've gone and sold myself.
Yep.
Would you do this? Will that person, if they can't do it for themselves, why are they going to do it for the company?
Yep.
It's not inherent to how they operate.
Yep. Yeah, I guess it's being able to sell yourself, or have that not just the motivation or the energy or the enthusiasm, but also the ability to communicate and intelligently, like you put it, articulate the value of the
even simpler. Just email you.
Phone
you. I've had a couple of instances where I've been referred some people, or I've been told this person's really interested in working for you. Amazing, great. And they haven't phoned me.
Yep.
I'm not phoning them.
Of course not.
I want you to show me that you want to be a salesperson.
Of course. If you want to, you have to go after it.
Yeah, go on,
How do you motivate salespeople? It's
dollars.
Money.
Dollars. Anybody who tells you it's about intrinsic motivation, I mean, this is my personal opinion. HR,
and that's exactly what
HR people around the world will cringe at this comment. I personally don't believe gamification or any of these things work. I'm of the opinion that good salespeople have a coin slot in the back of their head, and
that's to most people.
Yeah, and they're motivated by having really clear measures of when coins are put in. And in fact, I've got a friend of mine at the moment who's asking me about comp plans for his business, and we're having a discussion around, does a salesperson have to pay back their base salary before comp's paid? And I said, honestly, if you understand salespeople, you pay them from $1. That's just the way you do the maths. You work out what you want from a return on their revenue brought in, and it's a percentage, and you make it work. Salespeople are incentivized by being able to earn money. That's what you're asking them to do. You're asking them to earn you money,
and they're sharing that with you.
And they're sharing that with you. Yeah.
And you mentioned sales comms structures, and I worked in that space a little bit for a couple of companies, designing commission structures, and working closely with salespeople and leadership teams and whatnot. And in my personal view, the simpler, the better.
100%.
Companies a lot of times try to complicate the commission structure to make it work for them, to make it
100%.
Foolproof, to make it fail-proof. And what ends up happening is, salespeople look at it and think, okay, these are all the things they're trying to put in to cover themselves and screw me over. And maybe some people don't, sometimes it's too complicated for most people to even get and calculate. So the simpler, the better.
Simpler the better. In fact, I actually saw a interview from Mr. Wonderful, who's off Shark Tank in the US.
Yep.
And he says, in all of his companies, the highest paid people are the salespeople. He said, why? Because I'm asking them to increase the revenue of the company. If the revenue increases at the rate we want it to or above, then I'll pay them really, really well. I want to give them incentives to make in ridiculous amounts of cash by making me ridiculous amounts of cash. If you make me 2 million, I'll pay you $1 million. And it's a really simple concept, but you want, every organization, I think, goes through a couple of evolutions of maturity, and what's the type of base, and is it competitive base versus the market, or we want to grow from a mid-market to an enterprise company, or from SMB or consumer out, or whatever it's going to be. At the end of the day, it's the total amount of money you're paying these individuals, and it's how much they're going to overachieve for you or not. And you want their ability to overachieve to hockey stick.
Yep.
Isn't that what that's what the boards and the investors are wanting? When I'm investing in the share market, I'm looking for the share that's doing that.
Yep.
So why aren't we saying what you should give the same type of return to the people whose job it is to produce that revenue?
I think a lot of startups have it a little bit more challenging than more established businesses, there are a lot of different factors that big companies might not necessarily have to deal with. There are a lot of uncertainties. So trying to make sure that you pay good enough, but also grow at the same time can be a little bit more challenging.
It's risk,
Yeah.
right? So every company, and employing any person, it's always about risk avoidance. So, when you boil it down to those simple pieces, and then, as you grow a sales team out, and we've, in our team, we're kind of going through these types of inflection points as well. If you go from a team of, and look, in any organization, in my opinion, the CEO is the number one salesperson. Full stop. Has to be the number one salesperson.
I remember I saw a stat, it was saying like 50 or 60% of CEOs around the world are of sales background.
Yeah. I mean, but no matter where the company gets to, they should be in all the good deals and some of the dirty deals. Like that's where they should be. There's a lot of other things, but that's one of their key deliverables, right? Top line, bottom line, manage in between. But then if you look at the inflection point, so if you go from one person to 3 people to 5 to 10, 20, as you kind of go through those evolution steps, there are support structures that go with them, and it gets more and more expensive because you go from 3 people, then you get from 1 person as a salesperson. They've got an infinite territory. You sell anywhere you want to. Now you go to 3. How do you define between the 3 individuals? Then you go to 30. Well, hold on. Now I've got to ensure. Now I'm dealing with salespeople getting upset about who's selling which deal and why did he get that? You get that deal and she gets that deal, and all these different things come into play. At the end of the day, you want everybody to hit their number. That's the objective. Because now I can push everybody 5% and the whole company goes up 5%. And I can push everybody 50%, the whole company goes up 50%. And where people sort of get caught up, I think, in the sales process is I've got one individual who hits 200%, got paid a ridiculous amount of money. Yeah, but that individual made up for 2 others or 3 others that didn't get to where they needed to get to. So I think, this is and they drag everybody else along with them. So it's a really interesting issue around how you grow organizations. And it's a risk issue. People will employ an accountant really quickly in a business. They'll employ an assistant really quickly. And they're super valuable. But hold on, when am I going to employ a salesperson? When do you want to grow?
Yep.
Is it?
Same applies to marketing. I could say pretty much the same about that.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And if you think, people will readily give marketing divisions, free cash every year based on how much we grow. Here's a percentage number, and we know we're going to invest that. Aren't you doing that? Shouldn't you be doing the same thing about the person whose job it is to ensure that the contract is signed?
Yep.
That the customers, even the existing ones, are happy or growing. It's always easier to keep an existing customer than find a new one.
Absolutely. Every dollar spent on an existing customer is, a major ROI.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
for sure.
Can we talk a little bit about your startup experience?
Yeah, for sure.
And story. That I find that fascinating, and a lot of people who tune in, would also find it very interesting. So
yeah, sure.
How did it all start?
I'll tell the story. So, look, I started my career in retail sales. So I worked in a mobile phone store when I was at school, all the way through university.
Started from the bottom.
Yeah, I started from the bottom. And then I went into FMCG sales. So I was in, I worked for Nikon cameras. I worked at Hasbro Toys. And while I was at Hasbro Toys, I had sort of eked my way through an MBA. My father and I both did an MBA at Macquarie. And he's a solicitor. No, different times. Very, very different times. It was 15 years apart. 15 years apart. He's a solicitor at Eastwood, and look, he threw me a business problem that one of his clients had, and he said, "I don't think this is a legal problem. I think this company's gone broke." And I looked at it and I said, "I think they've gone broke as well, and just not told anybody yet." So we ended up over a number of beers on a Easter long weekend, decided to buy the service division of Clean Mat Appliances. Went broke back in 2009. And I then jumped on a plane, flew to 5 states in 48 hours.
Wow.
Met every single service franchisee. And we just bought the assets of the service division. We bought some phone numbers, we bought some websites, we bought some service manuals, because that was going to be enough for us to sort of reinvigorate this division. And in 4 or 5 days, I had to work out how I was going to run this company.
Wow.
And I basically stumbled across Salesforce's platform. I didn't know anything about it before then. I knew I needed some tech, and we weren't buying any tech from the liquidators. And my thought process was as complicated as, at the time, Google was a major client of their what they call the Service Cloud division. If Google thinks this stuff's all right, I'll use that. I'm in. Went and negotiated a hard deal in terms of, how do I get some good payment terms to help me sort of cash roll my business, and then we started on a Monday. It was just turn it on and let's go.
Wow.
Worked with an SI who I'm still friends with today. Sort of a decade later, a systems integrator. And again, negotiated some terms with him in terms of how I was going to pay for all this, and cracked on. So that was, that was 2009. We ended up working with, again, found some partners, found some distributors, and so we sold the company to a company called Stokes Limited, who were, so they were ASX listed. So we sold into the ASX listed company, and that company sold again sort of immediately after sort of we sold our pieces. And it was, I got some interesting advice stepping towards that sale. One was to fire myself because I didn't want to go along with the sale. I was really clear that this was sort of a 3 or 4 year venture for me. I had a young daughter on the way, a daughter on the way, and I didn't want to work there anymore. It wasn't my lifelong dream. It was a thing I'd stumbled into.
Which is smart. Knowing, being clear about your exit strategy is very important.
So I sort of, made myself chair or something. I don't know what my title was at the time, whatever. And my brother was working in the business. It was a family company. He sort of stepped up to be sort of GM and ran the company for a bit, and then wanted to go along with it and did, which was, that was good for him. And I got out. I went and as part of that, that's where I sort of stepped into Salesforce. And at the time, I'd been doing a whole heap of work with Salesforce as a customer reference, doing different videos and bits and pieces for them. Found my new home. Yeah.
Interesting. So what was the number one factor in making this work and it being successful? Do you think
hard work?
Was it jumping on the opportunity or taking that risk?
Yeah, I think, for me, it was an interesting experience of just making a decision. I've given lots of people advice over the years in terms of, what does it take to make a company? Jump on vistaprint.com and print your business cards. Go.
It starts with taking a step.
Starts with taking a step, right? For us, it was just a critical decision of we're going to do this. Look, timing for me was right when I was at, I sort of was wanting to leave where I was, and I was looking for the next thing, and didn't really know what it wanted to be. Let's do this. Let's do it now. Was
it a gut feeling also, or were you purely objective about it when you assessed and you looked at numbers or the market or anything else?
Gut.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gut. At the time when I made the call, it was, we had grandiose dreams of what it was going to be. And, none of the things that we made, we grew it out to be a national kitchen laundry appliance repair company. That was sort of what we bought as a core. We built on the side of it an online spare parts business, a significant retail appliance sales business. So effectively, someone would come in and tell you your oven's cactus. Well, what am I going to do? It's in the wall. How do I fix it? So we work with clients and replace that, give them advice on the right products, and we built partnerships with retailers because cracking into getting retail licenses or for the distributor, the vendors to give you the ability to actually buy the product's a real challenge. That's a whole other level. Well, it's a whole other level of what's the term?
As in,
they've kind of wrapped that whole market up into trying to crack into being able to actually get the rights to sort of sell some of these products is interesting. So learned a lot about that space at the time, but we built a really strong company, and we built a company with a lot of expertise in different areas. I built an expertise in sort of building a go-to-market, building a technology base, understanding how to drive customers, streamlining and bootstrapping. How do you do things just by being smart about it?
A lot of it too is knowing where to spend and what to spend on. You know, a lot of times startups fail because they spend too much in areas that are not, you know, they don't go MVP. They don't, you know.
And look, I made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
You know, that's it's one of the clear examples that I'll lean on to give advice to sort of my customers now. You know, I paid probably a lot more money than I should have for, you know, developments of my system and platform that we never ever rolled out. And why? Because I didn't have a clear plan. And I was sort of iterating on didn't even know I was doing it at the time, but an agile basis without anywhere you know, near enough of clear sprints and guidelines and release dates, and stuff was just being built as we thought about it and how we rolled and where we're going to next. And, you know, lots of the things that I know now a decade on, I do very, very differently in terms of, you know, how we built our company and the infrastructure to make it work.
Yep. It's interesting working for yourself and, you know, being a business owner or a startup owner or founder versus working in a large enterprise or, you know, in a corporate environment. What are the things you like about both, and what sort of experiences you think you've carried from, you know, this to that?
Yeah, sure. Look, it's funny, you know, having been at, you know, super small company to large corporate, Salesforce, and then sort of back into the, you know, we're sort of 1,000 people globally at FinancialForce. But even then in region where, you know, sort of sub 50, I still remember the first week of running my own company, and got to the end of the week and great, we'd done some great business and it was a great kickoff. And I kind of looked around and went, oh, the floors are a bit dirty. As everyone picked their bags up and went, well, you better go and get a vacuum cleaner. And I went, I haven't hired a cleaner. Oh, I better go home and get a vacuum cleaner. And I think the real key for me, and I think the opportunity for people in sort of especially in Australia, where most of our businesses are sort of sub that 1,000-person mark, you know, even large organizations are sub 1,000 people. You get to get involved in things that aren't categorically just your job. You know, even in my role now, you know, I get to get involved in what our go-to-market looks like globally, what our marketing strategy is, you know, how we looking at solving problems with our services teams. And whereas if I was in a company, if I was at Salesforce now, there's a much greater sort of box around, there's just different people to do different things. And as a result, there's respect on let that person do their job. And whereas in our organization, there's a lot more of all of that person, we don't have that person. So you get to get your hands into a lot more bits and pieces. And I think you know, the opportunity for someone stepping out and doing their own thing is, you get to decide your own destiny. You get to decide what it is you want to do and what you don't want to do. That's exciting. It's super cool.
Yep. If you're someone who doesn't like to, if you're someone that likes to focus on one thing, there's an area, there's a function or, you know, a skill set that you like to focus on, and you don't like to get your hands dirty in everything, do not start a business.
That I agree with, 100%.
Because you'll be doing everything from doing invoices to cleaning,
absolutely,
to, you know, answering the phone, everything when you start out. Versus if you were a creative person and that's all you wanted to do.
Yeah,
you know, yeah, you can also do your own thing, but really starting a successful company means that you're gonna do a lot of things that you might necessarily thought or wanted to do.
Oh, and look, you know, people will ask me all the time, you know, I did an MBA and, you know, what'd you learn from your MBA? I said, oh, look, I learned a lot about learning. You want to learn about business? Go and start your own company.
Absolutely.
You will learn more about accounting, running your own company than you ever thought you needed to, irrespective of what job you've got, or, you know, what particular service or product you're selling. You will work it out by the end of your first BAS statement. You've worked it out.
It's like you want to be in the MBA, and then someone goes and says, "It's not a knock on MBAs, but it's like you want to join the MBA, and someone goes, okay, we'll put you through 3-4 years of studying how the game works. Like I just want to get to practice.
Put your shoes on. You're on the court.
Jump in
Go.
there.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're right. Businesses is definitely like that too. Anything else that you wanted to kind of dive into that we haven't covered?
Look, mate, there's a lot we can.
more.
There's a lot we can talk about. I mean, I think it's. You asked before about digital transformation. I think it's one of the interesting things for me that there's this great term, digital transformation.
Everyone uses it.
Everyone uses it. No one knows what it means. I don't think anybody actually does digital transformation. I think they do digital renovations of their businesses.
That's interesting. I like it.
And because if most companies, if I've got thinking of a former client of mine when I was at Salesforce, who are a great plumbing company. They make some of the best pipes in the country, like plastic pipes, right? They're not changing what they do. It's not a digital transformation of their business as a result of buying Salesforce. They're making their business work better tomorrow than what it does today. It's a renovation. It's no different to you bought a house and it's got a crappy bathroom. Well, put new tiles and it still works the same way. It just looks nicer and it's more functional. And I think for lots of organizations, that's a really difficult thing for them to get their head around as to what is it they're really trying to solve. And being really clear to their business around a lot of the things that we do because over time we've put sticky tape or, Excel spreadsheets to tie this all together, and none of that should be the way that it is. So, it's no different when you're thinking about renovating your house. It's just, it's a bit of a rabbit warren, and we're going to knock some walls down and make this a bit more functional. And, we'll open the back up, and that makes makes the backyard look nicer and makes the whole experience of the house better. That's what you're doing. Most digital transformations are digital renovations. And being willing to say to individuals, no, you can't have. And my wife will laugh at this. You can't have the marble tiles. They cost too much money. You can have the marble lookalike tiles because that's just as good. Or no, that particular way of doing it's unnecessary for us to go about doing that. Or that'll be the next renovation. Or, we talk in my family about that's the next person's problem. Like that's the next owner of the house's problem, right? Yeah. And I think we all in digital transformations try to do everything. And we try to listen and deliver for every particular user in the business and everybody's desires. I coach my clients on, you've got voices and votes. Give everybody a voice, not everyone has a vote. Make some really clear decisions. What are you going to do? What are you not going to do? And then afterwards, say, look, we listened to what everyone wanted, and hey, listen, this is what we're doing. And the reason we're doing it is because it's going to make the business better tomorrow than it is today, like this. Why? Because our purpose and our focus is to deliver, we're going to ship more boxes. We're going to expand to a new territory. We're going to deliver a new service. We've built a new product. We want to deliver greater margin to our customers with less costs, or whatever the story is, right? Really clear outcomes, and the things that you're doing in that process deliver on that, and everything that steps you off that mark during your process. Stop. Let's come back to to why we're doing it. That I get it, looks better, or it's a nicer page, or it's a better function. Does that help us get to the objective that we had? No? Great. Note it. That's in phase 4. We may never get to it. But let's get back to the core. I think that's a really key piece for digital renovation versus transformation.
Totally agree. And what a great way to end this episode.
Cool.
Thank you so much, Daniel. It's been a pleasure talking to you and learn about your experience and get some tips from what you've done with Salesforce and in your startup, and I look forward to sharing this with the world.
Thanks, Ronnie. Thanks for your time.
Appreciate it.
Go.